If you're looking for a nice deep tone out of your 2015 and newer 5-liter equipped F-150, then you might want to consider the MagnaFlow 3-inch Street Series that we're talking about here today. Now, this system will combine a full stainless steel build along with the single side exit design, all for the low $1,000 price point. Install will not require any cutting or permanent modification, but since all of your work is done underneath the truck, Site is going to kick this one up to a soft 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and call it a couple of hours or so to complete from start to finish. As always, guys, hang with me for a bit and we'll walk you through that job later in the video. But as is tradition with exhaust videos, let's break down the sound clips we heard at the very top of this video. And listen, guys, the MagnaFlow has always been a favorite of mine for the 5-liter trucks, especially if you're a fan of that deep thumping tone without too much volume. So with that in mind, going to my Wake the Neighbor scale, I have the MagnaFlow Street Series coming in at a solid 3 out of 5 on my 1 to 5 or 1 to Wake the Neighbor scale. Now, to my ears, it's just the right amount of volume without driving your wife or your kids or your neighbor crazy, but at the same time, it does produce a very nice deep tone overall. Now, there have been some slight mentions of a little bit of drone in the customer review section, but I will say it's primarily at those highway speeds between the 2,000 to 3,000 RPM range and is certainly not overwhelming to me. Now, speaking of that review section, MagnaFlow is very well represented with over 100 4- and 5-star reviews. So feel free to read up on some of those back on the product page to better help your decision. But let's move away from sound and get into build quality and materials. And much like the sound, the build quality overall here with the MagnaFlow is certainly on point as well. Now, very well made with the 409 grade stainless steel throughout, including that 3-inch mandrel bent tubing. The sound from the system here is going to be shaped by the company's Street Series muffler, which does feature a straight through design, helping increase your flow overall. Finally, guys, everything is going to exit out the large 4-inch tip here, etched with that MagnaFlow logo, which will dump right behind the passenger side rear tire. It's going to be very similar in regards to layout to your factory exhaust, so you know what to expect there. I also want to point out that MagnaFlow does include a couple of different adapters with this particular system, one that will work for the 2015 through 2020 trucks, and then one that is going to be specific for the 2021 and newer trucks. But now let's segue into the installation. Overall, the MagnaFlow is not going to be that bad when we're talking exhaust. Again, there's no cutting, there's no permanent modification needed. Instead, this is a very simple bolt-on job. So what do you say we head out to the shop and I'll walk you through the job on our 2021 F-150 right now. Tools used for this install include a dead blow hammer, cordless impact, 3/8 ratchet, extension, a 15mm socket, 13mm wobble, 10mm socket, a hanger tool, and some safety glasses. Getting started here today with our MagnaFlow install. The nice thing about this kit is that it does reuse your factory resonator, which means we don't have to mess with any of the pipe down there. We don't have to cut. Instead, everything is going to mount or install from the resonator pipe back. Now again, MagnaFlow does include 2 different connection pipes here, one for the 21 and newer vehicles, another connecting pipe for the 2015 through 2020 vehicles. And we'll talk more about that when it comes time. But first things first, guys, we got our 15mm socket. We're gonna go ahead and loosen up this clamp now. All right, so now that we've got that clamp nice and loose, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our rubber hangers. We're gonna start with our first hanger here. I have a nifty little hanger removal tool. If you don't have one of these around, no big deal. You could always use a flathead screwdriver, pry bar, whatever you have laying around the garage. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this through. Next up, I'm just gonna drop this entire hanger. There's a single 10mm bolt up there we're gonna tackle next. And then once that guy is out, it'll make it a lot easier to slide the factory exhaust out of our third and final hanger. Got our third and final hanger here, guys. Again, I'm just gonna go ahead and unbolt the 2 10mm bolts securing the hanger to the frame rail. If you prefer to do it the other way and just go ahead and get the hanger itself out of the rubber isolator, you can totally do that as well. All right guys, now with all of our hangers released, you need to rotate the system a little bit to clear this little tab. We'll show you once we get everything uninstalled. But with that rotated, at this point, we should be able to slide the rest of the system out of our resonator pipe here. Might take a little convincing. I got a dead blow hammer with me here, again, to try to push the system back towards the rear of the truck. And at that point, it should come free from the resonator pipe. All right guys, so full disclosure, this clamp is not being nice to me this morning. So what we're gonna do is actually just move to the two 13mm bolts at the flange side. With those removed, we can drop the entire system, resonator and all, and work with getting this pipe separated on the ground where I'll probably have a little bit more room to swing. Hopefully you guys don't encounter something like this at home. This is the first time R21's been apart, so there is a welded clamp up here. However, I just feel like we need to get it on the ground to get these separated. So if you can get this separated, great, that's all you really needed to do. But in our case, we're gonna go ahead and remove those two 13mm bolts next. All right, so now that we got those two bolts out, we're gonna go ahead and drop the entire system. Fish it out over the axle. All right guys, now that we have our factory system uninstalled on the floor here, I figure we throw it right next to the MagnaFlow, show you kind of some of the minor differences between the two. And I say minor in this case because as you can see, as far as configuration is concerned, you're not really getting anything different, right? This is a factory style configuration, single side exit behind that passenger side rear tire, just like the factory system you're replacing, which again, some owners might really like. Some owners might want more of a wild configuration or more of an aftermarket configuration. And if that is the case, you are in luck. MagnaFlow does offer a few different variants there. But if you like that factory style configuration, what else can you expect? Well, we talked about the 3-inch tubing all the way through, mandrel bent. You can see the differences in the muffler itself is pretty substantial. This thing on the factory side is massive, and as such, it does keep things to a minimum in regards to your sound. MagnaFlow, on the other hand, is about a quarter of the size of your factory muffler, and therefore the straight-through design along with the perforated tube design is going to allow for a lot more sound. One thing I also would like to mention here between the two systems, the MagnaFlow is considerably lighter. Now, I know we're talking trucks, weight isn't that big of a deal, but to me, at the end of the day, if you can shave a few pounds from your rig, it's certainly worth mentioning. Last but not least, again, the cherry on top, the tip on the MagnaFlow certainly looks a little bit better. Ford, I will say, they've stepped their game up over the last decade or two in regards to their tip, but the MagnaFlow with that rolled edge and the etched MF logo in there just looks super nice and is a subtle reminder that yes, this is an aftermarket system. But enough about appearance, let's get this thing installed. So with the system on the ground, before we go ahead and install the new MagnaFlow, I did want to show you a little bit better of this little tab that you have to rotate before you can separate. So just make sure you're aware of that before you go to actually remove the factory exhaust. Otherwise, you might not see this and it might frustrate you. So we're gonna get our resonator back on the truck first, and then we'll go ahead and install the MagnaFlow next. All right, first things first, guys. Again, we're just gonna throw up our factory resonator, two 13mm bolts that we just removed, and then we'll get that MagnaFlow in place. These guys started by hand first. Once you got a few threads in, just grab your gun or your ratchet and go ahead and send them home. Next up, I'm just gonna get our hangers in place to accept the MagnaFlow. It's gonna make it a lot easier to hang everything with these hangers in place. Make sure your tab goes into the frame rail here. Grab the trim middle. Tighten that down. And same for the rear hanger. With all of our hangers in place, now we're gonna start with our first piece of the kit here coming off the resonator pipe. Now, I do wanna point out that MagnaFlow includes 2 of these connection pipes here with their kit. This is gonna be used for the 2015 through the 2020 trucks, and the slightly larger one is gonna be used for the 2021 and newer trucks. So about 2.5-inch OD here with the previous gen, and this is 2 3/4-inch OD for the 21. They do specify that in the instructions, but just want to point that out to you guys as well watching at home. So if you are doing your install alongside this video, you know which pipe to use. So let's grab our right piece of pipe and get working. Keep this in place, make sure we got our isolator lined up as well with our hanger. There we go. All right, so I'm just gonna leave this clamp loose for now because it's gonna give us just a little bit of play here with the system, which is certainly helpful when it comes time to bolt the rest of the system up. Okay, up next, guys, we got a 3-inch clamp here. We're gonna slide over our resonator connection pipe, and we're gonna get the MagnaFlow muffler in place. I like to start the actual hanger first, kind of get that situated. And slide the muffler over the pipe. And again, we can hold up on tightening that up for now. Now we have our over axle pipe. We're gonna go ahead and install that onto the muffler next. Of course, don't forget your clamp. Last but not least, let's grab our tailpipe. And our final piece of pipe here. Again, make sure you got your clamp over the pipe before you install it. This one's a little trickier to line up. Get it started in the hanger, and you can slide it over the over axle pipe. Like so. All right, now that we have our pipes connected, I have my 15mm socket on my gun. I'm just gonna ever so slightly snug this up. Certainly not going for my final tighten down yet because we need to make some adjustments for the tip itself. But we just wanna make sure these clamps stay in place. That's all you really need right now. We'll go back and tighten it up later. All right, with these types of things, I typically like to work my way from front to back when it comes to tightening everything up. We're gonna start here at our resonator, make sure this pipe is nice and tight. Next up, we have our pre-muffler clamp. Now your post-muffler piping is where you really want to start paying attention to not only your clearance underneath the truck, but also your final tip position. So we're at the clamp closest to the muffler here after the muffler itself. I'm just gonna lightly tighten this one down first just to hold the clamp in place. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make my clearance underneath the truck itself with the tubing. Make sure we're not hitting any frame rails, we're not hitting the spare tire. And then once we do that, we'll make sure we have the tip exactly where we want it and tighten up our final 2 clamps. So this is just a light snug. So we still have some movement in our piping. Right now it looks like this piece of tubing here, our over axle pipe, is actually very close to that frame rail. I'm not happy with that, so I'm gonna adjust that out of the way. And at the same time, we're also gonna work on positioning our tip. Again, it's very important to leave these final 2 clamps loose so you can make your adjustments. So I'm happy with my distance between the frame rail. I'm gonna come back to this clamp first. I like that. All right, now I'm gonna come back to that clamp right after the muffler right here and tighten that up to make sure we got our tip exactly where you want it. So in this case, I'm holding the tip positioned exactly where I want it. I got my gun in the other hand. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this up. Now just go back and check all of your clamps, make sure everything is tight, and we're just about wrapped up. Alrighty, with that final clamp tightened up, that's going to wrap up our review and install of MagnaFlow Street Series catback exhaust, available for your 2015 and newer 5-liter truck at home. We hope you enjoyed this review and install, and keep in mind, for more cool products and videos like this, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.